That does
you're
a
in
lot.
college.
Do you understand like the history of right-wing politics in this country? Like we've gotten not only just in the Trump era, the mainstream right has become so much farther right. But you can I saw an article recently on Twitter talking about
how 777 made that great point that in the post-war era it's been banned. Like the right-wing movements are gone. They have not existed.
The right has gone more further out. Like Tucker Carlson is like just like slipping in the other day. Oh yeah, we all agree that gays should be able to get married.
Yeah, it's not the right. Tucker's never been on the right. Not like
but he is like the #1 like establishment right influencer, and he just slips in that he's pro-gay marriage now out of nowhere. The GOP, a whole bunch of them broke ranks to support the federal gay marriage bill recently, or they're planning on doing it or something. Like the right is getting more cucked, not less. The only thing which is kind of moving, I mean, Trump kind of moved things back a little bit on the immigration issue, but outside of that, the right has been going in the complete wrong direction for fucking decades.
Yeah, I'm not even going to call it the right anymore. I think what Nick and what you guys do
right of
is
liberalism,
the right.
Let's say.
If there's no JQ, it's not the right. If there's no race question, it's not the right. Like if there's no truth to it, it's not the right, and you're not reacting against anything. You're just you're just stuck to the other piece of bread in the kosher sandwich.
Like now we have I saw like gays against grooming or something. Like this is the new like Lady Marga. This is the state of the quote unquote right in 2022. You know what I mean? Like 2023 or whatever. It's
constant energy capture. It's just dissident energy capture.
There's no standards. They're not even bothering to like. No one is talking about no fault divorce, for example. Like they've just taken the L on that. Gay marriage. They're basically taking the L on gay marriage now. It's like a Stone Toss comic, you know what I mean? Like the Republican primary 2045, and it's like the Democrats are the real transphobes or whatever, right? Like for fuck's sake.
How Pat Buchanan himself drastically reshaped the direction of the right in the 1990s. Like, should Pat Buchanan have like named them or something like that?
Pat Buchanan did name them, you fucking idiot. Pat Buchanan literally was like a Holocaust revisionist.
We live in this 30-year-old world where these guys aren't even aware, like that David Duke was a Republican candidate for state office in Louisiana and nearly won 30-something years ago. Like that's gone, and that's it should be very disturbing. But to them, they just content to live. Moldbug is right in the way about that ratchet effect, and of course, he's just giving you a glimpse behind the curtain when he talks about these things. But this is how the media cycle works. And, they used to say that conservatism is just liberalism driving the speed limit, and it's totally true. Ravilo Oliver, he was William F. Buckley's best man before he went basically, he went very edgy in the mid 60s. And his life's project was pointing out that conservatism is just loser ideology. Like it has nothing to do with who we are as a past. It's just a mediated outcome between forces that you can't even name and forces that present themselves as yourself.
Look, that's so true, but I just can't get over John Doyle here saying Patrick Buchanan didn't need to name them. Like, how fucking historic! Like, you just don't even know your own shit. Like, you're supposed to be a paleocon. You should know.
Trump went after him for being anti-Semitic.
Yeah, you should know Pat Buchanan. Like, his takes. Like, I'm not even fucking American, and I know Pat Buchanan's takes. Like, you're a fucking fraud, John Doyle. Like, an absolute fucking fraud.
Yeah, I think it was in 2000 or maybe it was 88. I can't remember which run it was, but they rolled Trump out against Buchanan, and Trump's barb against him was that, he couldn't support Pat Buchanan because he was anti-Semitic.
This is just sad. This is just John Doyle is a total fraud, man. Like, if you're gonna be the conservative shill, at least know your shit. You know what I mean? But he's just that's what I said. These people are not that smart. They're not that educated. They're just frauds. It's as simple as that.
I mean, this is a guy who's universally revered, but he's an infiltrator. But he's an infiltrator.
To actually do anything, to actually push the right.
What are you mad about?
Right. People and it's not just socially, right?
The dissident.
Also, I'm curious to get your take on this quickly, Wendell, because my take on Pat Buchanan was that he kind of cucked a little bit to Bush, like he ended up endorsing Bush in 2000. And I think
he always cucked. He was a mistake. That's just Buchanan. You know, look what he did in 2000. He took on some freak weirdo black woman as a running mate. Like Buchanan he never was able to stand tall, and no one ever has. No one ever has.
The thing was, in the 90s, like he had a massive, like the mid 90s, he had a huge base. And if he took them off the reservation,
what Nixon tapped into.
Yeah, if he took them off the reservation, then neoconservatism wouldn't have had such a free run at things in the 2000s. And paleoconservatism wouldn't have completely collapsed. Like, and he would have had to go against the GOP. He would have to go against the establishment hard, rather than, the main thing is that GOP, defeats the Democrats in the next election. It's the same conservative bullshit. So I agree with John Doyle to an extent that Pat Buchanan is a kind of cuck like he is. But even at least Pat Buchanan had the balls to like speak truth to Jewish power, and
he was like 90s Tucker, compared to Rush Limbaugh, who was always just willing to play ball with the establishment so he could maintain his position as kingmaker. Buchanan was further to the right on many issues, but ultimately he kind of had this dream, I feel like, of maintaining his presence in media, if not in electoral politics. And so he went, but he's also a Nixonian, and Nixon was very much a social liberal. This is what Nixon defenders failed to admit. Nixon refused to roll back any of the Great Society reforms of LBJ. Nixon had a very paternal view of race, as famously espoused in the Nixon tapes when Herrnstein's article about IQ came out, I think in 1971. It's Nixon and Moynihan, and he's saying, "Oh God, if the blacks discover that they have a lower, whatever this is, IQ, lower potential, we can never allow them to know. What a terrible thing for them to know, to limit themselves." He was very much a social liberal, but his great project, like Buchanan's, was to, and Trump succeeded here as well, to unify the white electorate, or do more to unify a white electorate that in Nixon's era had not yet divided entirely into the Republican Party, where conservatism was still split between two parties. By the time Buchanan ran, that was all but sorted out. And of course, Trump leveraged those gains, at least in the kind of dwindling non-college educated white class, to at least earn one term. But like Nixon, you weren't going to be allowed to ride it out. So the real lesson of what Nixon attempted to accomplish was that it's way too dangerous to engage in white reconciliation. They murdered McKinley over it in the 1890s too. He ran on that as well. So any candidate explicitly or even implicitly running on Southern and Northern white reconciliation is in for it. And we'll see if anybody ever tries it again after Trump.
Yeah, well, I'm gonna try and control myself and not pause this for at least 2 or 3 minutes. So let's give it a go.
On the far right, they don't push anything. It's the people that actually infiltrate and stay within the mainstream that get things done.
Well, how long are you guys gonna infiltrate and stay within the mainstream?
Luke,
for?
you keep
Because very tired.
Are you really acting as if no gains have been made whatsoever? Like, are you serious?
We are openly
I
discussing
feel like we're losing
anti-white racism. We're discussing demographic change. We're discussing pornography, things that would have been unspeakable even as recently as 2-3 years ago. And to this, you'll say, "Oh, well, it's because Nick and some guys asked Charlie Kirk questions at a Q&A," which is like, okay, yeah, that's why that trickled into all of right-wing media. You know this as a reactionary.
Don't pause, Joel, but I just want to say this was mainstream in the 90s.
Catastrophically worse for us before people start to be accepting to these ideas. It's going to get worse before it gets better. That's why we're reactionaries.
Luke, you also say that you guys, as Tony was saying earlier, like, why aren't you doing anything about this?
Real.
And you say that you're in college, and that's the reason why you can't actually speak about this stuff, but you're straight up naming this stuff right on a live stream. What is stopping you from actually doing some real work?
Yeah. I dropped out of college so I could do this. You're still in college, cuck. Why don't you name them in your classroom?
Yeah, that's
cuck?
funny. That's funny.
These guys are pieces of shit.
Yeah, these guys are assholes, man. And the thing is, like, this whole idea of like, oh, because we're in the system, we're mainstreaming notions like anti-white racism. It's like, the reason why that shit happened is because the alt-right happened. It's because the Trump 2016 thing happened and all the energy that brought into politics. And this is the reverberations of those effects, because there was an articulation of the left's agenda, or of, let's say, not even the left's agenda, let's say like the system's agenda, which has also become more extreme in recent years as well. And so, like, conservative media has to cater to that, and they have to censor the fuck out of people like us because they're afraid of our narratives completely delegitimizing the center right and delegitimizing conservatism. So they have to kind of throw bones, right, to the goys. They have to throw red meat to the goys to keep them on the GOP plantation. I mean, that's how I see it.